Have you ever felt lonely, lost, overwhelmed, not being able to move on from that one thing? That one thing that keeps you up at night, that makes you overthink constantly, and the answer to which you just can't find, no matter how hard you try. The irony is that the answer does exist. It exists in the last place that we would ever look for it. We need an outside perspective, something unbiased, unfiltered, and brutally honest. Not just comforting words, but a shift in mindset. Which is why Sood It Out now exists, to give you real, raw, and relatable conversations without the fluff, without the bias. So if you're ready to stop dwelling and start evolving, we are going to deep dive into the mind games that we play with ourselves. Have you ever looked at your own life and wondered कि भाई ये क्या चल रहा है? क्योंकि ना तुम्हें अपनी ज़िंदगी ऐसी स्लो मोशन में अपनी आंखों के सामने बिखरती हुई दिख रही होती है. एंड द फनीएस्ट पार्ट, देयर इज़ नथिंग यू कैन डू अबाउट इट. भले वो इंटर्नशिप का प्रेशर हो, पढ़ाई की टेंशन हो या हार्ट ब्रेक का हैंगओवर हो, सारा कुछ ना ज़िंदगी में इकट्ठा कैसे धाड़ करके बचता है. और तुम एक सेकंड के लिए ना रुक के सोचते हो कि भाई हाउ द फक डिड आई गेट हियर. एंड इफ़ यू एवर फेल्ट समथिंग लाइक दिस, देन वेलकम टू द क्लब. But before we get into it any further, there is a question that has been asked from me over the past couple of days, multiple times, which is कि यार है क्या Sood It Out? What kind of content are you going to put out? What are you going to talk about? And one question that I've been asking myself is, why am I doing this to myself? For those of you who don't know me, ladies and gentlemen, I am Achintya Sood, a 22-year-old master student trying to make sense of life just like you. No guru, no motivational speaker, no 6 a.m. wake up routine. Honestly, I don't even make it to my morning lecture on most days. Just don't tell my father, please. You see, over the past 3 months, life decided to get real. And I figured that if I'm going through something like this, chances are that you are too. You see, my life decided to throw me into hard mode without asking for authorization first. No OTP, nothing. New country, major setbacks, and losing something that I had started to value more than most things in life, it all became a little too much. It felt like I was on a roller coaster with no brakes on. And the worst part, the lows just would not end. And you know, maybe you felt this too. There comes a moment in everybody's life where everything that you worked for, hoped for, planned for suddenly seems pointless, where even getting out of bed feels like such a task. And no matter how much you try, you just can't seem to get yourself out of this rut. Well, that is exactly where I was. And then came that last nail in the coffin. That dreadful phone call, which made all of my insecurities and worst case scenarios come to life. That one phone call where things actually ended. And for real this time. And what did I do? I let myself drown in it. I let myself soak in all of my misery. And I prayed. I pleaded for someone to come along and take my pain away. Because isn't that what we all do? Whenever we find ourselves in those spiraling moments in life, we wait for someone to come in and fix things. Like we're the star of a feel-good Netflix movie. हमको ना सबको जब भी मेट का शाहिद कपूर बनना है कि हमारी भी ज़िंदगी में कोई गीत आए, हम उसकी एनर्जी से इतने प्रभावित हो जाएं कि हम अपनी दुख दर्द तो भूल ही जाएं, साथ में घर जाके अपने डैड की कंपनी भी एक्सपेंड कराएं. बट हियर इज द हार्श ट्रूथ दैट ऑल ऑफ अस हैव रियलाइज्ड एट सम पॉइंट इन आवर लाइव्स कि ब्रो, नोबडी इज कमिंग विद और विदाउट अ केप. द ओनली हीरो इन दिस मूवी इज यू. योर फ्रेंड्स will help you. Your friends will sit with you on video calls till 7 a.m. if they have to, just to give you company without even talking. You're both just doing different things, but you know that somebody is there. But if you find yourself 10,000 miles away from home like I do, they can't make you get out of bed, they can't make you go to the gym, they can't make you refocus on your goals again. And the funniest part, all of us already know this. Because zindagi bhar we've had multiple experiences where we've known that at the end of the day, time will pass. You do it or you don't. The time will still pass. We all know this, and yet we wait. We wait for that one miracle, for that one magic wand, for that one magic spell that will erase the memories overnight. But that is not how it works. And the thing is that अगर तुम जिंदगी में, if you're actually doing something worthwhile in life, if you're actually destined for greatness, you don't have the time to sit around and wonder. You don't have the time to sit around and figure things out. You don't have the time to sit around and feel your feelings, because you've got the world to conquer. And in my case, I had my exams starting in 2 weeks. और पिछले 1-1.5 महीने से जो इमोशनली ड्रेनिंग टाइम चल रहा था मेरे लिए, जब आई वॉज ट्राइंग टू सेव अ 2% बोर्ड ऑल बाय माई सेल्फ, थैंक्स टू ऑल ऑफ दैट, आई डेंट इवन नो व्हाट द सिलेबस वाज. मेरे को कुछ आइडिया ही नहीं था, तो और कोई ऑप्शन था नहीं, तो मैं बोला पढ़ो भाई, बैठो पढ़ेंगे. एंड वेन एवर आई वुड सिट डाउन एंड एक्चुअली गेट इन टू दैट फ्लो, my brain would start playing tricks with me. You know, it would start replaying all of those good memories, all of those good moments, all of those unkept promises, all of those chats. वो ना सारे moments याद आने शुरू हो गए मेरे को, और I developed this nagging voice in my head that would just, you know, keep telling me something or the other. और ना यार, मैंने ना ज़िंदगी भर अपनी ईगो के चक्कर में ना बहुत गालियाँ खाई हैं, अपने माँ बाप से, अपने टीचर से, सबसे. और जब इस ईगो की मेरे को सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरत थी ना, ये मेरे को मिल ही नहीं रही थी कहीं पे. इट वॉज नो वेयर टू बी फाउंड. सो आई मेड अ डिसीजन कि भाई अब अगर ना बात ईगो पे आ ही गई है, देन आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू लेट दिस वन थिंग, दिस वन सिचुएशन दैट आई फाइंड माई सेल्फ इन इफेक्ट all the things that I worked so hard for over the past 7 years. You see, all of us, wherever we find ourselves in life right now, whatever stage of life we're at right now, all of us have made a lot of sacrifices. हमने बहुत मेहनत करी है यहाँ पहुँचने के लिए. The only thing is कि यार हम ना एक दूसरे को कभी क्रेडिट देते नहीं हैं. एक दूसरे को तो फिर भी दे देते हैं, अपने आप को कभी नहीं क्रेडिट देते हम. And what we do is we let these short-term setbacks, these short-term things affect us in such a way कि यार जो हमने इतनी मेहनत से चीज़ें पाई होती हैं या किसी मुकाम तक हम पहुँचे होते हैं ना यार, हम उसको इफेक्ट होने दे देते हैं. एंड दैट इज़ रॉन्ग. सो आई स्टार्टेड टू दी ओनली थिंग दैट आई न्यू आई वॉज वेरी गुड एट, ज्ञान देना. मैंने ना ज़िंदगी भर अपने दोस्तों को बहुत ज्ञान दिया है, मैंने हर टाइप की एडवाइस दी है. तो मैंने ना वही अपना ज्ञान लिया, उसको अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट में फिट किया और अपने आप को देना शुरू कर दिया वो ज्ञान. एंड दैट्स व्हेन आई फाउंड इट, दैट्स व्हेन आई फाउंड माई मैजिक वॉन्ड. यू सी, we look for the answers, we want all of the answers and we look for them outside, we look for them in that one Instagram reel, in that one YouTube video कि भाई कोई एक piece of advice मिल जाए जिससे मेरे सारे दुख दर्द दूर हो जाएं. And the irony is that the answer does exist. It exists in the last place that we would ever look for it, because it exists and it has always existed in our own minds. How I realized this is when I started to answer more and more questions my brain would throw at me, I had to introspect very, very deep. And the deeper and deeper I introspected, the quieter that voice in my head became, until I reached to a stage where I was not dealing with a demotivated state of mind anymore. I was now actually beginning to understand my own behavioral thoughts and patterns that had led me to that point. I had started to analyze my own mistakes that I had made so that I don't make those same mistakes and find myself at that low again. And that's when the weird part happened. You see, sometimes the voice in my head, it would become so loud that I had to start telling myself something, anything, just to quiet it down a little bit. और ना कभी कभी मैं अपने आप को कुछ भी बोल रहा होता था और मेरे को रियलाइज होता था कि भाई एक सेकेंड, दिस एक्चुअली मेक सेंस, कि ये कुछ तो था. सो आई स्टार्टेड टू रिकॉर्ड दोस वॉइस मेमोज, नॉट फॉर एनीबडी एल्स, फॉर माई सेल्फ, फॉर द डेज व्हेन आई न्यू आई वुड स्पाइरल बैक. आई न्यू when my brain would try to push me back into that same old thought pattern again. And here we are. 3 months later, I find myself at a much better headspace. The thing with life is that it likes to corner us at crossroads, where the only two choices for you are, number one, either you let all of it weigh you down, you stand still and let life consume you, or you try to make sense of the mess piece by piece. I chose the latter. And this podcast is the brainchild of all of those late night voice memos, of all of those eureka moments that helped me get better. And if you've ever felt like this, if you've ever felt lonely, lost, overwhelmed, or just tired of it all, I want you to feel this shift as well. Because if I can get through this, so can you. And you're already making progress. You're already moving forward. You just don't know it yet. But now the question arises that why should you watch this? Why should you give me 15 minutes of your week? क्योंकि तुम इस टाइम पे सोच रहे हो यार कि मेरी ज़िंदगी में तो कोई अभी एक्सिस्टेंशियल क्राइसिस ऐसा नहीं आया है, तो मैं बाद में आता हूँ यहाँ पे. बट लेट मी आस्क यू अ क्वेश्चन. हैव यू एवर फाउंड योर सेल्फ not being able to move on from that one thing? You know, that one thing that keeps you up at night, that makes you overthink constantly, that makes you question yourself, and the answer to which you just can't find, no matter how hard you try. You see, when I found myself in a similar situation, just to be able to get to that workable state of mind, I had two options for advice. Number one were, of course, my friends, जिन्होंने यार बहुत पुट्ठे तरीके से समझाया, बट वट एवर दे सेड मेड लॉट ऑफ सेंस एंड दे सेड ऑल द राइट थिंग्स. पर यार वही बात है, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. वो जितना मर्जी बोल ले, मैं हमेशा ये सोचता था कि तुम तो मेरे दोस्त हो भाई, तुम तो यही बोलोगे ना, तुम मेरी साइड लोगे, तुम्हारा काम है, मेरे दोस्त हो तुम. तो सेकेंड ऑप्शन, आई वेंट टू इंस्टाग्राम रील्स एंड आई स्क्रोल्ड एंड स्क्रोल्ड फॉर हंड्रेड्स ऑफ आवर्स, just to find something that was relatable. And I did find things. I did find a reel every once in a while, which helped me a lot. But mostly it was just 28, 29-year-olds giving their own perspective on life, which made a lot of sense. But यार something felt off. वो ना मेरी situation में ऐसा मेरे को लगता था कि पूरा fit in नहीं हो रहा. And यार honestly, the amount of time that it took me to compile my own Move the Fuck On saved collection, you should not have to go through all of that struggle. Which is why Sood It Out now exists, to give you real, raw and relatable conversations without the fluff, without the bias and without making you scroll through 100 different reels just to find one that actually resonates with you. क्योंकि यार the thing with human psychology is, हमको ना अंदर से पता भी हो ना कि हमारी गलती नहीं थी, हमें फिर भी तब तक तसल्ली नहीं मिलती जब तक कोई और सामने से ना बोले कि नहीं ब्रो तेरी गलती नहीं थी. क्योंकि think about it, whenever you've actually been at fault, you've hardly ever felt guilty about it, you've hardly ever reflected back on it, because you've always found a way to convince yourself कि bro there was nothing else you could have done. But जब तुम्हारी गलती actually ना हो, that is when we seek reassurance. That is when we need somebody unbiased to validate our feelings. We need an outside perspective, something unbiased, unfiltered and brutally honest. Not just comforting words, but a shift in mindset. And let's face it, our generation, we're stuck in this weird existential limbo where we're all just winging it, trying to figure out life, careers, relationships, self-worth all at once. No roadmap, no manual, just vibes and overthinking. And that's exactly why I'm doing this. Because I know that in moments like these, when you're caught between who you are and who you're trying to become, you just don't need advice. You need perspective. You need perspective from someone who gets it, who's in the trenches just like you. Who just like you एक दिन उठ के ये सोचता है कि यार मेरा आइडियल करियर कैसा दिखना चाहिए, ये मेरे ज़िंदगी के गोल्स हैं, इन तक मेरे को पहुंचना कैसे है. और अगले दिन सुबह उठ के ये सोचता है कि भाई अगर मैं आज मॉर्निंग लेक्चर ना भी जाऊं तो कौन सा मैं बेरोजगार मर जाऊंगा. And honestly, even if one person walks away from this feeling a little less lost and a little more in control, well, then that's reason enough for me to keep doing this. Over the course of what I hope will be a long series of episodes, we're going to tackle different mindset challenges, helping you break out of your negative thought patterns, gain clarity, and take control of your narrative again through the unfiltered perspective of a 22-year-old who's winging it just like you. So if you're ready to stop dwelling and start evolving, hit that like and subscribe button, because we are going to deep dive into the mind games that we play with ourselves. And by the time that we're done here, you won't just move forward, you will rise above it all. So let's get this juggernaut rolling, and welcome to Sood It Out.